Okay, here we are in part 6 of a 6-part video series about the 8 orders of being. There are 6 of these main videos. There's some other ones that are included in the playlist on YouTube, and you can find a link to that down below here or on the website at justconflict.org. You can go noodling around in there. Also on the website there are copies of all of these graphics, so you can look at them, you can print them out, post them on your refrigerator, whatever. Okay, in this last of the 6 videos, we want to consider the things that hold the 8 orders together. We've talked about the discrete parts, the steps within this, the stages, and the lines of development of human relationship or of consciousness, of even our governmental styles. Everything that arises through stages of development that follow along in accordance with these 8 orders of being. But there are things that tie them all together, and what ties them all together are some things we call transcendentals and strange loops. There are probably other things too, but those are the 2 that we want to highlight. Transcendentals, the transcendental qualities, are ones that philosophers have considered for eons, well, for thousands of years anyway. Medieval scholastic philosophy considered transcendentals primarily as the good, the true, the beautiful, sometimes also as unity. Transcendentals are those things that go beyond particular categories. That is, they are true in different categories of being. So they're not restricted to a single context or a particular realm. So in this graphic of the 8 orders, I have included these transcendentals as other ones that I think are worthy of our consideration, particularly these 4: love, freedom, justice, and time. And I strongly encourage you to spend some time with this map and just kind of feel your way through these, considering that these are not the only transcendentals, but they are among those qualities that transcend and thus include, knit together, each of these realms of the material, relational, interior, and spiritual. But let's take a little closer look at love here as an example for this. And the words that I'm using for love here are the ones commonly used because they are distinct qualities that are characteristic of the Greek words for love. And they differentiate between them, and they're used in various literary circumstances. But I would suggest to you that they are also characteristics of these various realms of being. So the first one, the bottom one, philia, is the root of the word for Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Philia has to do with the love that we have for those who are part of our group, our team, our community, our family. These are the people that are mine, my tribe. Eros, we commonly think of eros or the erotic as being sexual love, but it's really more broadly about the love that we feel that draws us into a connection with others in such a way that we want to be bonded, we want to be connected. This erotic love is what gives rise to the universe as we come to be more and more connected to each other. Now, agape, sometimes said agape, this is the word that is translated into love in translations in the New Testament. When Jesus spoke of love, typically he was talking about agape. And this is the love that we feel for another, which is a compassion for their circumstances, because we have a capacity to look deeply into ourselves and say, oh, I know what this is like, and so I can feel this same thing for the other, and so we are connected by our similar experience. But I'm also positing this fourth, or this higher kind, this kenosis or kenotic love. Now, I'm not the one who invented this notion of kenotic love. Other people have used this term before me, but I think it's a particularly good expression of how love arises at the transpersonal, spiritual, 7th and 8th order. It has to do with a love that we experience and express when we are willing to act in a way that it's on behalf of someone else or of a larger whole of which we might be a part, but it's self-sacrificing. It is, we're willing to give up something of what is ours for the well-being of another or for of the whole. This is the kind of love that we see expressed by soldiers going into battle. But it's also the kind of love we see when infants, seeing another unhappy infant within their same preschool, goes over to them and gives them the toy that they've been playing with. This capacity to give to another what is precious to me in such a way that I'm going to lose some or all or part, I'm putting at risk my own well-being on behalf of another. This is self-emptying or kenotic love. And I would suggest to you that it is an example of this highest form of love, but we see it in infants. So love transcends. It is, all of these loves are available to all of us all the time, independent of our capacity for complex thought. You don't have to be particularly wise. You just have to be open-hearted. So that reflection on love, I want you to look at that in terms of justice and freedom and time as well, and perhaps thinking of your own examples of transcendentals that you may be able to see more about the nature of the transcendental by looking at it from the perspective of a particular realm. Okay, we also want to talk about this thing we call strange loops. The concept of a strange loop was something that was revealed to me in a book by Douglas Hofstadter called Gödel, Escher, Bach. Kurt Gödel is a mathematician, J.S. Bach, of course, the musician, M.C. Escher, the graphic artist. And he used the three of them and their work as ways of talking about the interconnectedness of things at various realms of being. And that when we see systems as in some sense self-referential, they can kind of look at themselves in some way. There is a sense in which the lower orders create the higher orders and the higher orders create the lower orders. And so an example of this, a fairly commonly noted one, is this one, hands drawing each other from M.C. Escher's graphics. There's a lot of this kind of play, this paradoxical depiction that is available. Just look for the etchings of M.C. Escher. This is my graphic for what I kind of think of when I think of a strange loop. It's these colors in a swirl rising up and getting more narrow at the top because there are fewer of us there, but there are these lines that connect these together. All right. So I want to give you an example of a strange loop that's perhaps a more common one, because I'm to my way of thinking, everything's a strange loop. I thought they were strange. Turns out they're incredibly common. The example, the one in one of the videos of it's basically a William Blake poem that appears as a letter and then a word and then another word and then a sentence and then it grows from letters to words. There are these lower order, simpler structures that become more and more complex, more able to carry complex meaning, and ultimately the meaning of the poem, which we can ponder and debate. But the question then is, does the mind of the author create the poem, or does the poem create the meaning well, it's both. A much more common way, at least in my experience, that I see this is in terms of music. Music is, at the material level, a vibration that hits against my ears in such a way that I hear notes and frequencies and timbre and percussion and silence, and these perturbations within the air around me give me the sensation of music, which is played second order by musicians who are skillful and are able to play and sing, and actually they're able to do it together, which is a third order phenomenon, perhaps even shaped by the work of a composer. Someone designed this as the way it's going to be. Maybe this is a song they've heard somebody else play, so somebody else composed it, and now this band is doing a cover of this song. But that's a fourth order expression because they're going to do it their own way. This is a unique expression of something that is a part of the culture. But when they do that, if they do that well, we notice it impacting us. We have an emotional response to that. Our own interior is stirred by that, maybe to the point where we come to some new understanding of something. This makes meaning in our world in such a way that we are inspired. And so any music is, at least potentially, can be experienced by us as a strange loop. Okay, so I want you to look for strange loops. I want to say one other thing as we close out here. Some of you are probably fans, or at least some of you are going to be fans of Jean Gebser, and you're going to be a little disappointed that I haven't brought him up. So I want to bring him into the conversation now. As we talk about what happens, as I asked at the end of part 4, what's after eighth order? We move up and up and up into the capacity to understand higher and higher realms of being here. Come on, there you go. As we move up into eighth order here, what's above eighth order? And some folks posit that after eighth order is ninth order. We just don't have any idea what ninth order is yet, because there aren't enough of it that construct our consciousness at the higher orders that we can discern what that is yet. That doesn't really work for me. I am reminded of a lecture that I heard by Alan Watts many years ago when he talked about his own paraphrase for the Vedanta creation story. And this would be my paraphrase of his paraphrase, but basically it's, for eons the divine existed in undifferentiated wholeness. God was bored. So God determined to fashion a game of hide and seek in which God disguised God's self as the rocks and the rivers and the trees and the hills and all the things, all the living things, and then waited to see if there was anything that God had created that could find God. So it's a cosmic game of hide and seek, and we're seeking to discover that, in fact, Tattvam Asi, I am that. So Gebser, which I want to introduce here, if I can get him up in front of us. So Jean Gebser had stages in a developmental framework, but he didn't really call them so much stages as mutations in human consciousness, these stages of personal growth, deep structural shifts in how humanity as a whole expresses reality. And he laid these out into these 6 stages, starting with archaic, kind of an undifferentiated unity of being; magic, where we see the magic in the world, we participate with nature and with everything that is being made within it. And then above that, mythical. We have stories that we tell about it, make it explain it for us. We transcend that and move to the mental, the analytical, the logical, and finally from mental to integral, where we pull all of things together. We integrate all of the earlier modes. So I want to lay this series of archaic, magic, mythical, mental, and integral up next to our map of the 8 orders, and suggest that we start down here with archaic, and that's first order and below. Magic, which is mostly second order. These don't fit perfectly, but close. Mythical. Now we are coming together to tell stories, shared stories about what it is that is going on around us. To the mental, but the mental is both fourth order, where we are differentiating ourselves, but interior, fifth order, as mental. And then the integral is sixth order and seventh order. So we would draw the lines at slightly different places than where he draws them. I make distinctions differently. And then we end up at eighth order at the archaic. Oh, well, wait, archaic. Wasn't that first order? Yes. Yes, maybe the archaic and the archaic, first and eighth order, or what's below first order. Eighth order transcends into first order. So I have recently learned of this ancient Egyptian symbol called the Ouroboros. From the website Egypt tourist portal. Quote, the Ouroboros is one of the oldest symbols in ancient Egyptian history, having originated around 1600 BCE. It represents concepts such as rebirth, immortality, cyclicality. It is depicted as a serpent or dragon biting its own tail. The name Ouroboros translates to devouring its own tail, or all is one, symbolizing the cyclic nature of time, the universe, and the idea that creation emerges from destruction and life from death. Some cosmologists posit that in the deepest, darkest, coldest reaches of space, particles pop into existence and then disappear. Matter and antimatter formed at the same time, and then they destroy each other. But sometimes matter is not destroyed. Sometimes matter remains. So perhaps the ancient insight is correct. Perhaps form arises from formlessness. Perhaps what comes after eighth order is first order. Perhaps the undifferentiated nature of the unity of eighth order longs for the particularity and the diversity of first order. Perhaps there is no end without beginning. And thus we end. Thank you.